Back in the days, US research always took days, weeks, hours, or even months to be able to come up with great findings from a research that sometimes designers always end up frustrated because they have used lots of time, resources, and money. Now with the help of AI, you could still do all of this within minutes and come up with the same results or even better results. I will show you how to accomplish this in this video using a mobile app as a case study. So stay tuned to the end of this video. So what exactly is US research? Simply put, is the process of understanding your users and then aligning their needs to the business needs. By understanding your users, you mean that you are trying to identify their pain points, frustrations, and then create ways to be able to solve those pain points. And by so doing, you could also identify some opportunities. So it's one thing to be able to identify pain points of users. It's another thing to solve that pain point in the right direction. And that is why we are doing UX research, to be able to solve a particular problem in the right way. So it's like guiding your team on the direction to follow while designing. So if you are collaborating with developers, product managers, when you are done your research, you want to present your findings in the best way that would actually interest them. There are different methods to perform this research, and a few of them are surveys, interviews, observation. There is no particular method that must be used for any research. You tend to choose the best method that fits your research goals, and that is why it's important to set your goals before the commencement of any research. For surveys, survey is asking questions to your intended users. It could be multi-choice questions or open-ended questions. This particular method helps to get the quantitative data in your research because here you are dealing with numbers. However, because it has a higher tendency of getting data or getting responses, people who are actually answering this survey might not put in so much effort in answering this survey. Hence, this survey could be a high generating data but low quality. Interview, on the other hand, takes lots of time and then it could lead to lower responses. But because you are actually conducting this research with users either virtually or physically, you could get more in-depth questions or more in-depth insights, and this research always leads to low data but higher quality. Observations, on the other side, is basically asking the users to perform a task in your product. If it's an already existing product, you could give different tasks to different users and then watch them perform or complete a particular goal. You could ask them how they were able to complete this goal and their frustrations. So depending on your research goal, you would want to choose the best method for that particular research. So like I said before, it is very important to set your research goals before you start a research. This will guide you throughout your research process. So how do you want to set your goal? You might want to set questions that you want answers to. For our case study, which is a content creator app, our question is going to be, how do content creators currently create, plan, and decide on content? So notice that we are being open in this question and we don't want to drive the research to a particular findings or problem. We are trying to understand who our content creators are and their daily activities in creating content. So once we have set these questions, we could now further set a design brief. So in setting a design brief, there are 4 guidelines to follow. First is the audience profile. So you are trying to identify who your audience are. Second is context. So you don't just want to solve for random people without any context. So what exactly is the context around content creators? A case is going to be content creators who are trying to create content in schedule and meet their personal goals. That could be the context. The next is the goals. Every research needs to have goals. These are the insights that you want to discover by the end of this research, and not setting these goals make your research not to be as effective as possible. So the fourth is pain points. You want to identify what the pain points of your intended users are. So in setting this design brief is going to guide you throughout your UX research. So for our case, I've created a design research for a content creator app that we are trying to design. So let me read it out to you. We are conducting discovery UX research with content creators to understand day-to-day workflow for planning, creating, and publishing content. So first of all, our goal is to learn about how creators decide what content to create, how they plan or schedule context, challenges related to consistency and motivation, moments when they feel stuck or unsure about what to post, tools or workarounds they currently use. This research aims to capture real behaviors, frustrations, and unmet needs without assuming any specific solution or tool. So notice in our design research, we have our personas, which is the content creators. Next, we have our context, which is to understand their day-to-day workflow for planning, creating, and publishing content. And then we also outline our goals, and then we say that we want to also identify their pain points, which is their frustrations. So following this format, it will guide you on how to create a design brief that you could now use for the rest of your research. If you don't know how to create a design brief from scratch, you could use the help of ChatGPT to ask ChatGPT to give you ideas on how to create a design brief. So once we are done with our design brief, we head over to ChatGPT to paste the design brief and ask it to create a prompt that will be used in Google Form to generate clear, neutral, and unbiased US survey questions that reflect how creators actually work today. So ChatGPT is going to help us to create a very detailed prompt that we could now use on our Google Forms. So we head over to Google Forms to paste this prompt that ChatGPT has helped us to generate, and then we can now see the questions that the Google Forms have generated. So you can see that there are several multi-choice questions, and you could go through them to check if it actually solves your research goals. And that is why even in prompt engineering, human in loop is very important to make sure that the AI is actually saying and solving what you intend it to solve. So once you are done checking the questions, you could see below that there are some open-ended questions. Remember that I say that in surveys, people don't usually answer quantitative questions with much intent and focus, and that is why you want to spice it up with qualitative questions like open-ended questions, so that people will now answer these questions with more focus. Here you can now get more clarity on your users. So with these Google Forms questions, you can now distribute it to your intended users, people who are content creators, and once they have answered this question, you go back to extracting the insights from these questions. So this is the end of this video for now. Because we had created these survey questions, I would like to go back and then make sure that I get my responses, and in my next video I will show us how to extract findings from the responses and then develop insights and themes which will help us to create UI designs and final mobile application designs. So let's go back in designing better.